All right, so this week we're going to take a virtual tour of the United States Army Infantry Museum at Fort Benning, Georgia. This is absolutely probably my favorite museum to tour. And the exhibit that we're going to tour is it's a virtual walkthrough. So we're going to walk through the entire exhibit. It's called The Last 100 Yards. And what that's really representative of is the job of the infantry is to close with and destroy the enemy. So these exhibits in the last 100 yards really show how close our infantrymen have performed in battle. And if you look here at the very beginning, as you walk into the exhibit, on that first pillar is the Combat Infantryman's Badge. The Combat Infantryman's Badge is an award that is given to every infantryman and special forces soldier who have participated in ground combat and actually fought against an enemy of the United States. It was developed as a recognition for those soldiers in World War II who had the most susceptibility to becoming wounded or being killed. And it was really in recognition of that. Interestingly, after World War II, if you'd received the Combat Infantryman's Badge, the U.S. government gave you a stipend of $10 per month for the risk that you bore during World War II. Surrounded by the Combat Infantryman's Badge are the current Army values on all those clear pillars. They are loyalty, duty, respect, selfless service, honor, integrity, and personal courage. And you can see you can pan around and look anywhere in here, and you can pan and you can look up toward the ceiling as well. And you find these circles on the ground, and you just click each circle and you move forward. As we get into the first exhibit or the first diorama in the last 100 yards, you'll see that every one of these, there are 8 battles represented, or 8 time frames. Some of them are specific battles and some of them are more general. The first battle here is the Battle of Yorktown with Lieutenant Colonel Alexander Hamilton leading a bayonet charge right up there. And you see there's a short description of the battle on each one of these posts, and you can read, I think, 6 out of the 8 battles. There's 2 of them that it's a little too dark in here to read. As we pass the Battle of Yorktown, we come to the Battle of Burnside's Bridge at the Battle of Antietam, and that's represented right here. As we cross the bridge, we come into the 20th century, and the first battle that it depicts in the 20th century is the Battle of Soissons, France in 1918 in World War I. Continuing through, we get to a diorama of Omaha Beach and D-Day. And you can see that this doesn't only have the beach scene. It does represent the beach landings for Omaha Beach, but if you pan up a little bit, you also see the cliffs at Pointe du Hoc. You can pan further up and look around, and it has one of those gliders that delivered the glider regiments in behind enemy lines the night before the landings took place on D-Day. Moving further ahead, the next battle is the Battle of Corregidor Island, which is part of General MacArthur's plan to retake the Philippines after being forced out of there and into Australia to command most of the war. Then we move into the Korean War with Louis Millet's bayonet attack that earned him the Medal of Honor. Read a little bit about that. And then the seventh event is the Battle of the Ia Drang Valley in Vietnam with the landing at LZ X-Ray. That really famous movie called We Were Soldiers Once and Young, a movie and a book was made about this. And it has a depiction of what then was Lieutenant Colonel Hal Moore being the first one off the helicopter into the Battle of the Ia Drang Valley. And he, incidentally, was the last one to get back on the helicopter after they'd fought the Vietnamese for a couple of days. This last exhibit is really current day. So it's an M2 Bradley with infantry soldiers dismounting from the Bradley, moving around the front, and kind of how they fight out of a mechanized infantry scenario today. Now that ends the last 100 yards exhibit. And I know we went through really quick, but what I'd like you to do is to spend a little bit of time viewing this last 100 yards. Stop and read the descriptions of those battles, the ones that you can read. And then I want you to pick one of the first 7. Either Lieutenant Colonel Hamilton's bayonet charge at Yorktown, the Burnside's Bridge at Antietam, the Battle of Soissons, France in World War One, the D-Day invasion in World War II, the Battle for Corregidor Island in the Philippines, also in World War II, Louis Millet's bayonet charge in the Korean War, or the landing at Elzey X-ray in Vietnam. And I want you to do a little bit more in-depth study, do some open source research, and learn about that specific battle. And I want you to write a short description of it, and then post that as your discussion board initial post this week. And then come back and read what everybody else has read about, and we'll work through those 7 battles in discussion in the discussion board. And I'll come in and I'll read what you've written, and I'll offer some of my own opinions and thoughts on those battles. This isn't the end of the museum by any extent. When you finish the last 100 yards, you can continue out into the second floor of the museum. And there are a lot of other exhibits up here, not pertinent to the last 100 yards, but they are interesting exhibits about the infantry, about the type of training that the infantry receives, and about Fort Benning and the area that they do their training down in Georgia. So once you've finished going through the last 100 yards, you can spend some time up here and learn a little bit more about what our United States infantrymen really do. And I look forward to seeing you all in the discussion board this week.